Your husband is cheating on you, my brother-in-law Chris spat out, his breath reeking of alcohol and envy, but my husband swore it was all a vicious lie. Last night we had a party, and my brother-in-law Chris, who's 10 years younger than my husband, was here. By 2 a.m., I was cleaning up in the kitchen while Chris was on the patio, clearly flirting with Jennifer, a woman from his past who lives nearby. The door was open, so I couldn't help but hear. He was pouring on the charm, telling her how stunning she was. When she checked his Facebook and saw he had a girlfriend, he spun a whole tale about them being on a break, having an open relationship, the usual desperate excuses. Jennifer remained cool, politely thanking him but making it clear she wasn't interested. His frustration grew, and that's when he said it. "If I were my brother, you wouldn't have a problem with this." Jennifer replied, "Your brother is actually loyal. He wouldn't cheat on his wife." And Chris fired back, "My brother cheats on his wife all the time." She expressed doubt, and he doubled down, claiming my husband had slept with a coworker years ago and that he was planning to sleep with Jennifer too, adding that his plan must be working since she seemed to idolize my husband. Disgusted, Jennifer told him to sober up and left. That's when Chris stormed into the kitchen, saw me, and slurred something about it all being true and that my husband never faces consequences for anything. He then marched to the garage and unleashed a screaming match with my husband. I heard accusations flying, Chris yelling that my husband didn't deserve his life, that he'd forced Chris to keep his dirty secrets. My husband shouting back that Chris was a jealous liar trying to ruin his happiness because his own life was a mess. There's history there. Years ago, when we were buying our house and having our first child, Chris was at his lowest point, and I know he's carried that bitterness. In it with my husband throwing him out. Immediately after, my husband came to me, pleading that it was all lies, a malicious plot to drive us apart. I wanted to believe him. But this morning, Chris sent me a barrage of evidence, about 20 photos and videos, screenshots and screen recordings of message threads between him and my husband discussing a drunken hookup with a coworker years prior, and other explicitly sexual conversations with Jennifer, showing he at least planned to try to sleep with her. These included photos. My husband's defense was immediate. It's all a deep fake, a long-planned fabrication by my jealous brother-in-law. I know screenshots can be faked, but these were screen recordings. You could see the messaging app open, the conversation scroll. The most recent, innocent messages in the recordings matched the ones on my husband's phone, yet all the incriminating ones were mysteriously absent from his device. Can you even fake a screen recording that convincingly? I'm not in denial, and I'm not blindly taking sides. I just need more information before my world collapses. I'm meeting Chris later to see his phone in person, to examine the messages myself, and try to spot a flaw. My husband isn't claiming Chris forged this last night in a drunken rage. He insists this is a resentment-fueled scheme years in the making, that Chris has been sitting on fabricated proof, waiting for the right moment to use it. The seed of doubt, however, has been planted, and its roots are spreading fast, fed by the raw, undeniable envy I've always seen in Chris's eyes. The meeting with Chris was a tense, surreal confrontation. My husband and I went together, a united front, though the air between us was thick with unspoken fear. My husband never wavered, insisting he never sent those messages and never betrayed me. Chris, on the other hand, was ready. He pulled up the screenshots and screen recordings on his phone, the same ones he'd sent me. But there was a critical catch. He could not show us the actual message threads within the app. He claimed, unconvincingly, that he had deleted the conversations after taking the screenshots to save phone storage. He stood his ground, saying the evidence was real and my husband had simply deleted everything from his own phone. The standoff felt impossible to break, a classic case of he said with digital ghosts as proof. That's when we decided to go for the one thing that couldn't be manipulated by a resentful brother or a guilty husband, the official mobile carrier logs. We went online, right there, and pulled up the detail bill. It lists every text and database message with dates and times. And there it was, the undeniable truth. On the specific days, Chris's screenshots were time-stamped for those damning conversations. My husband's phone records showed 0 messages sent to Chris's number. Not on that day. Not the day before. Not the day after. The digital paper trail exonerated him completely. Chris had fabricated the entire thing using some kind of app. He had no coherent explanation for why. Was it for future blackmail? Was he waiting for the perfect moment to destabilize our marriage? And last night's rejection by Jennifer was the final straw that made him unleash his pre-made arsenal. We may never know his full motive. The woman my husband allegedly slept with years ago, she had just given birth to her third child around the supposed date. And Jennifer? Chris had been obsessed with her, but she'd shown no interest. I later found out he'd overheard her calling my husband a wonderful father and partner, which must have been the final insult that pushed him over the edge. The root of his bitterness is sadly clear. It's about parental favoritism. My husband was the golden child, never in trouble, always praised. When we married, his parents gave us money for a house down payment and cleared our student debts for a clean start. Chris was the problem child, treated with suspicion and harshness, and he grew into that role. My in-laws never offered him the financial help he desperately needed, and his father was particularly cruel. His envy festered for decades, twisting into this pathetic, destructive plot. For now, we are cutting all contact with Chris. I thought their relationship was healing, but it was a facade. My husband did not cheat. The evidence was fabricated by a man poisoned by his own resentment. The relief is profound, but it's shadowed by the grim reality of a broken family and the chilling knowledge of how far someone's jealousy can drive them. We move forward together, but the memory of that kitchen silence and the poison that almost worked will stay with us for a long time. All right, moving on to the next story. How one attempt to flirt after a breakup led to my public humiliation and a harsh lesson in social cues. I'm 31, and I just got out of a long-term relationship. I was crushed. One evening, my friend and I went to a nice restaurant bar downtown, the kind of place that attracts all ages. And right there, a group of girls was celebrating a 19th birthday. When they brought out the cake with candles, I saw the birthday girl. She was really cute. Something clicked in my head. After the breakup, all women except my ex had become invisible to me. But here she was, alive, smiling. My friend immediately said, "Drop it, they look like kids." But I insisted. I felt this desperate need to prove I could still talk to someone. He reluctantly came with me for moral support. We walked over, and I congratulated her. Things seemed okay at first. They smiled, we exchanged a few words. Then, out of nowhere, one of her friends snapped at me. "Take a hint. Understands her R. Kelly," she said. I was stunned. I just muttered, "Sorry." She told me I needed to read the room and that I was making them uncomfortable. Another girl asked us to leave. I was ready to walk away, but that R. Kelly comment cut deep. It's such a loaded accusation, equating me with a predator. I said that was messed up. They call me a creep, even though, legally, we were all adults. My friend was pulling my arm, but I stood my ground. The birthday girl said it didn't matter, but it was still weird for a guy my age to hit on them, especially when they were clearly uncomfortable. She then doubled down, asking if she looked like singer Aaliyah to me. That set me off again. I apologized for making them uncomfortable, but said that didn't give them the right to label me a predator. One of them retorted, "That's a you problem." I said adults have the right to flirt with adults. It's not a crime. One of them just yelled, "Why are you still here? Get lost." I was furious. As we finally walked away, their entire table burst into singing the remix to Ignition chorus, laughing hysterically. I was shaking with anger and humiliation. Back at our table, my friend said it was my fault for not seeing their discomfort. He said it was obvious to him, which is why he wanted to leave. He called me clueless. I pointed out they were laughing earlier. He said it was nervous, polite laughter. I told him I had every right to be angry for being called a creep when they were all 18 or 19. It's a terrible accusation. My ex was 6 years older than me. He said they didn't call me a predator, just a weirdo for hitting on teenagers. He admitted the singing was too much, but said I should have left way sooner. I felt he should have had my back. Was I wrong for defending myself? Was I wrong for even approaching them? I was polite. For the record, I usually date women my age or older. This was the first time I approached much younger girls. Okay, fine, I get it. I let my pride get in the way. Can't fix it now. I'll do better next time. The comments on my post were brutal. You're definitely the... You acted creepy, didn't take the hints, and then argued with women who directly asked you to leave. You're mad they called you a creep, but you seem to care more about that than the fact your inappropriate behavior made a group of women uncomfortable in a public place. Typical nice guy. The whole table singing Ignition remix was also hilariously iconic, especially seeing how much it pissed you off. You're a double for standing your ground after being asked to leave. What did you think would happen next? That they'd admire your persistence and realize they were wrong? That you're actually a great guy they all urgently need to sleep with? Or that everyone would awkwardly look down and you'd walk away like a boss, owning those be asterisk cheese? And then the whole restaurant would start clapping and panties would fly toward the obvious alpha male? The fact that both the girls and your friend immediately knew it was creepy to hit on them should have told you your behavior was not okay. You're 31. You're hitting on a 19-year-old, and you can't even confirm the ages of the others. They were likely 17 to 19. That's super creepy. You made them uncomfortable, missed the hints, and then got angry when they had to be rude to get you to leave. But you still didn't leave. It's awful behavior, and I genuinely don't know what you expected. Well, buckle up, because next comes an update. The birthday girl from that restaurant found my post. So before we hear her side, think about what you would have commented. Now, for the update. I never had an account on this forum before, but our journalism professor showed it to us. And sometimes I lurk. And one day, I came across a post that essentially described my birthday dinner from about 3 weeks ago. At first, I shrugged it off, but then I felt the need to clarify a few things. While I know most people already call the Opie __ for his behavior, some are upset about the R, Kelly, and Ignition comments. Was it rude? Yes, but I'm done being nice to creeps. This wasn't a bar. It was a bar restaurant, basically a regular family-friendly restaurant that serves alcohol. We were sitting next to a family. It wasn't that kind of place. We were just minding our own business, talking. He came over and wished me a happy birthday. I said thanks, and we tried to go back to our conversation. I genuinely appreciated the gesture at first, but he didn't leave. We awkwardly laughed and tried to continue talking. He stayed and kept interrupting. Every time he said something, we nodded and turned away. We said thanks by several times. He still stood there, talking. His friend kept finding excuses to leave. I was annoyed, uncomfortable, and grossed out, but I was still polite. I even said, "Okay, have a good evening. Here's a piece of cake to go. Bye." But he took the cake and sat down at our table, saying, "The night's not over yet." That's when my friend snapped, and if she hadn't, I would have. When she called him R. Kelly, she wasn't accusing him of anything illegal with minors. She was calling him a creep. 30-year-old men hitting on us are creepy and gross. Period. We were polite the entire time. I gave him a million hints and even gave him cake to go. His own friend was looking for ways to leave, and then he had the nerve to stand there and argue with us. I told him he was too old for us and that it was creepy from the start. When he finally left, we started singing Ignition among ourselves and then at him. It's an old school song our parents played. Instead of whining about some creep ruining our night, we turned it into a fun karaoke moment. P.S. When he asked our ages and stated his, it made us a million times more uncomfortable. A 30-year-old man trying to pick up 18-year-olds at a birthday dinner? We're used to older men hitting on us, and it's always nasty. For those writing, if he weren't ugly, he was decent looking and in good shape. If I didn't know him, I could have set him up with my aunt. But he's in his 30s, and that's too old. This isn't some fantasy. I've never met a girl my age desperately craving a 30-year-old dude. Being told you're legal is demeaning. The whole situation felt slimy. When he approached, announced his age, and then asked for ours, I almost gagged. It felt like he was checking our IDs at a family restaurant. Screw that. I'm tired of being polite to men who act creepy and disrespectful. Edited to add, 30-year-olds aren't inherently gross. Everyone ages. What's gross is 30-year-olds who hit on much younger girls at a birthday dinner. Thanks for listening to today's stories. If you like them, be sure to like this video and check out our previous ones you can see right here. Also, if for some absurd reason you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, be sure to do that. And good luck.